for the group as well. We're heading into game 1 on Daganata. In the bottom left, for the blue Protoss, he is PtitDrogo.
And spawning over in the top right-hand side, currently in the darkest room over in Russia, it is Vanya. That is exactly how I imagine every Zerg player, actually, just in a cave, like super dark. The only light is their monitor.
Truly the Zerg burrow in effect right now, just blocking out all the sun. Makes him stronger. So, I'm feeling even better for him, man. I'm telling you, Vanya, I know we're talking about the Roddy stocks, and certainly Roddy has placed some stock in this young Zerg player. He was pretty spot on last year. And I think that, because I looked at the actual results, I got a clearer idea of how either player is working, because I think there's a lot of motivation that comes with these DreamHack tournaments actually happening, right? Like an off-season in StarCraft is kind of like, quote-unquote off-season, because there's still so much stuff happening. Mm-hmm. But I always wonder, during that 3-month period, are they really trying the most? Are they the most inspired they're ever going to be? I don't know about that. And then we get into the actual season, and I'm like, okay, how they doing? And I think that's where a guy like Vanya, who's that up-and-comer, is really going to feel inspired. So seeing that he defeated Drogo in the TSL 7 qualifier, I believe it was, I was like, okay, Vanya's on point for this off-season. So he's going to come into this season, hopefully as strong as ever. So that's why I feel really good for this guy.
Yeah, me too. There is currently a pause, but obviously we can talk more about the players. I find this matchup quite interesting purely because both of these guys at their very strongest, I think it would be very, very close. Like, I think Vanya's been a 6.9k player. I think Drogo has also been like a 6.9k player. I mean, back when he won a DreamHack Leipzig, which seems a lifetime ago, he was obviously very, very solid. As for where these guys are now, Drogo streams, and he streams at, around like 6.5k MMR, but that's when he's streaming. I know that Drogo is definitely a guy that's very clinical about his practice, and we're right back into the game. So I'm very curious about how they line up right here, right now, because I think stylistically, I talked about them both being bullish. They both love to attack their opponents, and sometimes that can clash in ways that, it's quite spectacular just to see how it goes down.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more, too. Like, I didn't get to say it, but that's exactly what I was thinking of for Vanya especially, right? And that is, I think, one of, like, Vanya's weaknesses, perhaps, is that he is, too bullish. A lot of roach attacks where it's just like, okay, maybe it's a little too expected, but not, inherently bad. Dark is proof to that, I suppose. You can make roaches work however you want. Rogue as well, I suppose, right? But I do think that sometimes he's too bullish, and there might be a little bit more of a test of finesse for these players, where if Drogo is keeping a calm and centered mind, which has been a problem for him in the past, but not so much now, then yeah, as far as them butting heads, we'll have a little bit more of the experience shining through for Drogo. So I can definitely see him winning, of course, as well. I thought it was going to be close, still do. Even as we have kind of a classic throwback build here, Dark Shrine Archon drop right off the bat. This is actually the build that Drogo's going for.
Yeah, and with a Stalker to deny scouting as well, this is super old school. It can now divvy up a little bit between, does he go for like the 3 gates and does it come out super duper quickly? Or does he go for the 4 gateways and that being the most standard tried and true? This Overlord does get a scout of everything that's happening, and that is decent for Vanya because now he knows what he's up against, but it's by no means over when it comes to, DT and potentially follow-up Archon drops and what have you.
Well, it was a build that was standard for a long time for a reason. I think, it as a build, it has its strengths. It kind of keeps control. It does threaten if you don't know it's a Dark Shrine versus Templar Archives. Maybe it's the DTs all sacking themselves on top of a hatchery or a Sport Crawler, or maybe it's right into those Archons. There's some flexibility here, but overall, kind of like the Terran 211, it did just become so standard and so practiced that the Zerg players were like, swatting away like it was flies. But once you give it a little bit of time and you bring it back, then it can be a surprise, not just as far as do they scout it or not, but do they remember how to perfectly hold it. In this case, Vanya was very well aware that Spore Crawler was a little bit weak and actually a little bit weak. Oh my goodness, he's gonna grab it, but loses the DT. Oh, that was close.
That was unbelievably close. Like the real damage was done from these adepts. I wonder if Drogo, is he trying to get a warp in from the DTs? He is. I love this move, knowing that there isn't actually a Spore Crawler over here, and he gets away. Oh, but there's an Overseer. Tries to recall on the Archon. It gets away with 0 health. Literally 0 and 10 shields. This game is already everything that I thought it kind of would be, and we're only 5 minutes in.
Yeah, a little sloppy, you know? Like, Drogo especially is trying to really pressure Vanya, and they both have made some slip-ups, but Vanya now even going to get a Stalker and a canceled Nexus because of what the Archon couldn't fit through. Oh my god. If the Archon was there, it's an easy hold. But the Archon couldn't fit.
Oh, I was like, why didn't he just pick up with the Warp Prism and get it out? But it was only the recall on the Archon, obviously. So, yeah, that's why. The Warp Prism was still finding its way back home. And Vanya, yeah, he's looking pretty now. Like, this third base isn't going to get up anytime soon. I mean, the DTs can't be attacked until there's an Overseer over here. This is very gnarly for Drogo.
Even with the Archon, it was still so darn low. No shield batteries in sight that he actually couldn't tackle Lings. Oh, how embarrassing for the Archon. Oh, and how embarrassing for the Zealot. You practiced for ages, dude, to stop Lings from getting through. Come on. At least it's only 3 Lings, but they do get into the main, get a proper scout. Everything is known by Vanya, who, by the way, as we focus on Drogo's side of the map, Vanya is doing whatever he wants back at home. And in this case, it is building up quite an army.
Yeah, he hasn't been making drones for maybe the past minute or so, just like pure army units. Drogo has been chrono boosting out Immortals, but that supply, that really tells the tale of this story. That is a lot of Lings, a lot of Roaches, and you know, this is one of the saddest looking thirds of all time. Like, it's barely up and running. It isn't up and running at all. And Vanya, he's here, but there is no invis detection. That has to be said.
Overseer barely catches the DT going across the map. I'm not sure if Vanya actually caught it or not, so that could do some damage in return, but it's got to do a lot of damage because it looks like Drogo is going to be overrun. Not even bothering with the third base, pushing Drogo back away from the shield batteries that finally finished. The one does contribute a little bit to help the Archons, but not enough. That is it. Vanya takes game 1 in very convincing fashion, sub 8 minutes.
It's got to be said. Fast games today, ZombieGo. Fast games. And yeah, like Drogo, he tried to snipe that Spore, but if you're Vanya, trading out 1 Spore for 3 DTs, that's a trade you take any day of the week. I mean, the 4 Adepts got damage done. I like how everything lined up for Drogo, but yeah, not a good trade whatsoever. When an opening falls as flat as that did, even the next warp in that I thought was cool, but the Overseer was quick enough by Vanya. Just well handled by Vanya, honestly. And that follow-up as well with all those Roaches, Lings, and Ravagers just did everything he had to.
Mm-hmm. Drogo missed out on a big part of that build when he lost the DTs and was forced to recall the Archon, which is actually tracking any type of army movement with the Warp Prism and the Archons. Because if you can track Roaches trying to make across the map, you can buy a lot more time. Obviously, you get the Scout, of course, and you might actually get a couple of kills on Lings that aren't being controlled correctly. You chase it all the way home, and then you defend, hopefully, a third Nexus that is done, and shield batteries that are done. And of course, that wasn't the case. The shield battery barely finished, sure, but then the Nexus wasn't done, so no overcharge was available. And he was already totally overwhelmed just by the lack of units. 2 Archons and a Warp Prism could have really changed things up a lot. They could have continued harassing, buying time, and of course, actually being a part of the fight. So what Drogo tries, like an older build, try and kind of get like a surprise for Vanya. It's scouted entirely, and then as I was saying, it sometimes can still execution-wise work out. The Zerg can falter. Yeah, I would say that the Zerg didn't. Even though those Adepts did some damage, the Spore Crawler ended up not being worth it. So I think Drogo might be going back to the standard meta of right now, which is certainly the Stargate. We'll find out in a couple of minutes. We are on to Oxide for game 2. In the bottom left, up 1 is Vanya.
And spawning over in the top right is the blue Protoss. It is PtitDrogo.
All right. So not only does Drogo not really get his build to work out like you would want, Vanya sent over a cheeky drone. But Vanya also got such good scouting from the get-go. The Overlord scouted the Dark Shrine, but even those Lings kind of just getting in there and confirming, wow, you really don't have a lot of army. You don't have a lot of production set up. Really just cemented his decision to go for that attack. It worked out super well, and he knew it was going to work out because he had so much scouting, so much confidence after the denied third base too. And now Vanya, I mean, he's going to do anything cheeky with this? He's going to go for it? Proxy hatch? Yeah.
Certainly is. And Drogo, he's not just pulling down like 5 or 6 probes immediately. He's like, all right, this is happening. Let's see what I can do with this. He's just absolutely getting as many minerals as he can, and he's going for a second gateway very early on as well. Now, I don't know if this is necessarily the best approach to this. I think it's totally fine to be doing, but definitely unusual, to say the least.
Well, you know, for a while, the proxy hatch was actually, I dare say, standard. There's a moment there in Legacy of the Void. And Protoss has all kind of figured out a way to defend it in their own personal way. I mean, it kind of depends on what type of proxy hatch as well, right? Like if it's this one, which looks to just block the Nexus and really mess up your opponent, then I guess that's one way, right? The other way would actually be where his drone was, planting it outside the base, and then trying to like spine crawler rush, right? We have a different response, but this is the one that Drogo's decided to go with. It will eventually get a cancel on this hatchery. Will eventually put down his own Nexus. But with 2 gateways worth of units, he can also go across the map and hopefully force Vanya to make a surplus of links. You know, at least make him do something in exchange for the hatchery, which finishes, by the way. He's actually going to make links from it.
Oh, I gotta say, the timing on Drogo's production has been so clean. As he hit 100 minerals, it was when the gateway finished and when the Zealot finished so he could make another Adept. And here, like this, it's not really going to get super amounts done by Vanya. I mean, the Broodlings are annoying. Didn't get to get a Queen out for some creep spread and stuff, and a couple of Zerglings in the main. I don't know. I really like Drogo's response. This I find unusual, though. Like, as the Ling isn't killed, you build the Stargate right next to it for it to see. Definitely a little bit questionable, but Drogo's definitely been mining way more ever since it's been going on, really.
Right, yeah, Vanya, you know, he commits a drone and the hatchery costs and not having his own natural. And then he also committed to links, actually coming across the map. 2 of them got in, and that's nice. A little bit of scouting. As you said, the Stargate comes down in vision, which I think Drogo just kind of had to cut his losses, right? Realizing that Ling wasn't going to go down, and he was starting to bank some gas. It's information for Vanya. It does throw off Drogo's build, but as far as the actual net gain here, I don't think it's in the technical stuff. I don't think it's in the numbers, right? I think it's more just like Vanya wanted to throw Drogo off his game, and hopefully he did that. I don't think he did, though. I'm with you. I think Drogo has actually handled this rather well.
Yeah. Like, I'm always about, like, when players just do what they think. Oh, this is a bit gnarly. Having the Adepts, not really knowing where they want to go. I was just about to credit Drogo for just being very decisive with all his moves, but this was a little adventurous, let's say.
Yeah. It was not as good. One Adept will be saved, but she is very, very weak. The Zealot, I mean, can't really save it, but it takes a nice little position at the very least. And, hey, at least there was a decent number of Lings, not drones, right? Oh, no! That was so close. All right. Hatchery does get taken. I'm sure Drogo was also a little concerned about that. Just going to use the Oracle to clean up the rest of the Lings. Denver, where did that come from? Vanya, though, is making more and is probably just going to look to see that third Nexus is being taken super quick. Not so much. Drogo still has, is only just saturated his natural, actually. The probe's just transferred.
Like, as this game's going on, I'm starting to like things a little bit more for Vanya, but it's more down to I'm kind of disliking how Drogo's going about things. Not because he's playing badly, just this 2 gateway now, it's really starting to become apparent that these units aren't that useful, and they kind of won't be for a while. And what kind of damage can he get done? In fact, he's going up to 4 Oracles here? Wow.
Oracles. All right, then. Oh, gosh, who was doing this? Was it God?
Oh,
man.
my goodness.
This Zealot really needs to go back to Iron Train. My goodness. All the Lings get through. 2 probes already go down, forcing in warp-ins, getting further scouting, too, which I think, I mean, the Overlord already is just, like, passing through. Nothing to actually kill that thing, but more annoyances. More of Drogo making these mistakes, whereas Vanya once again, a lot of intel for him. Gets to kind of do whatever he wants in the last minute. Now has to seriously consider the threat of the oracles.
He definitely does. Definitely does. Like, he's got 5 queens. He's making quite a few more. The roaches are coming out in a pretty good time, actually. I think Vanya's going to be able to hold this off, because even though this little squad looks dangerous, I mean, it's going to focus down queens, and nice transfuse, but the queens are falling. In fact, Drogo's making something happen out of this.
Yeah, I think Vanya was a little bit mistimed there. He should have brought his extra 2 queens to the front from the get-go, and the roaches, you know, they weren't actually out helping to ward off the adepts, so the oracles kind of got to do what they wanted, especially since the spore crawler wasn't done. Now, that does seem to be the end, and Drogo is going to save all 4 oracles and keep an eye on where those roaches are going, because, of course, Vanya is an aggressive guy. He's not just building those defensively, he's building Ravagers, he's got Lings on the way as well. Did Drogo overstep? Does he have enough to actually defend this? The Pulsar Beam is going to be limited, and more Lings get in. Wow.
I just saw Drogo's face on the webcam, and yeah, he too is very surprised, because I thought that Zealot was definitely in place, but, you know, I once saw Drogo lose 4 Stalkers to 1 Widowmine. He had that face. These Oracles do come back, and wow, they deal a lot of damage to these Ravagers. Those Queens could not keep them alive, and oh, this is very, very gnarly for both these players. Units get recalled so they don't get surrounded, but the Oracles, they are reigning supreme, but they don't have really that much energy. But
yeah,
by golly, what a close game this is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, they used all their energy killing the queens, which, to be fair, if he didn't, the queens would be here right now, but that means they are out of energy. They're limited use. Oh, the Corrosive Bile getting 2 hits there as the probe line now is under attack. Of course, that 3rd Nexus for Drogo is also going to go down. He was already willing to give that up if maybe he could just hold on to his 2 bases, but even that is now in question as more Warpins get surrounded by the Lings. The Void Ray is slowly but surely taking out these units, but I think it's going to be too much damage. Drogo is just not cleaning this up fast enough.
He definitely isn't. You can see it. Just probes dying left and right. Vanya's doing nothing but making units, and he's actually making a Spire behind this and some drones now, along with the 4th base, but the damage has been done. Drogo's face says it all, really. Just smiling, probably hating his Zealots, you know. And he's just laughing away.
Yeah, those Zealots have not been very kind to him. It's just, you know, it wasn't the most decisive, I guess, until this moment, but I would just be tilted from the Zealot the entire time. GG. Yeah,
Vanya, from his cave over in Russia somewhere, takes a